going to go ahead and have my Marco Rubio moment right now. We'll see how that works out. Well, good morning, everyone. I remember years ago, the first time I came in these doors, Dr. Donald Curtis was standing up here, and he looked like he was right out of Hollywood. And as most of you know, he was, but he said, "May each one find here that truth which you seek." So that's my blessing for you today. I feel at home. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me, y'all. I brought most of the family this morning. 3/5 of the kids are here. And that sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but we're really proud of these kids. I mean, you talk about tending a garden and planting the seeds and watching them grow, and these kids are just amazing, and I hope you all have that same experience. If you don't, just look for it, because it's amazing to watch your kids become adults. We've got one that's getting ready to go into a master's program, probably headed to a PhD. I don't understand half of what he says, but I love listening to him talk. We've still got one in high school. Melody, or Kaya's going to graduate in another year or so we'll have all of them in college probably pretty quick, but Melody's going to the fire academy after completing her bachelor's degree in 3 years, so we didn't raise any overachievers. So just watch out if you've got any kind of a issue or incident at your house. Melody might show up to save the day. And then Dylan and Sean are both off starting their first year of school. Sean's over at UTD and Dylan's down in Nacogdoches. So Dylan's going to become a teacher, and Sean's playing with circuitry for computer work. So that's kind of the backstory on what's going on. Dana is still one of the most amazing realtors I ever met. So that's not a plug, that's not a pitch. It's just, I did that for a year after I left here, and let me tell you something. If you're not meant to be a realtor, Spirit will tell you quick. And it will tell you by giving you gentle hints like nobody will buy anything from you. So from Matthew 13, I didn't bring my Bible today, I just printed it out here. I find that when I get to go speak at some smaller churches, when I bring my Bible, they look at me like I walked in with a gun or something. So I didn't want to take that chance here. No, I know. There's still Bibles in the back of the pew, right? Matthew 13. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, "A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came up and ate it. Some fell on rocky places where they did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seeds fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seeds fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear." Most mornings you'll find me in the garden. Before work, just a quick trip out there, mostly because of the dogs. But I still enjoy it. On weekends, I love spending the mornings out there, whether it's working in the dirt or pulling weeds, or I love sitting the smoker up on Saturday morning and cooking something for the family to have on Saturday evening. It's a wonderful place to be, and there's so much creative energy there that I find myself drawn to it, much more than TV. I don't know if any of you are gardeners, and I don't profess to be a master gardener. It didn't always look like that. When we first bought that house, was it 8 years ago, something like that? It was pretty. It was not attractive to me. There were some pretty things back there. There were some banana plants. It's got a nice pool in it, but the tile was dated. It looked like somebody, just put a 1970s pool there with all that kind of icky cracked tile. There were some small bananas. There were some flowering trees that were placed too close to the pool, if you know what I mean. It just didn't have that charm. The spa didn't spa, the fountain didn't fountain. But we had a vision for what we wanted to see. And when I look back on that, I envy God's creative process, right? You start with a blank slate, let there be light, let there be this, let there be that. Let me tell you something. Life is a mother. It's a creative process from conception to delivery. Do you see what I did there? And it's wonderful to watch that be delivered. And when I look at my garden, I see a lot of spiritual truth there that occurs every day. Forrest Gump said life was like a box of chocolates, but I think it's like a garden. And I'm a nerdy type. I'm not a gardener. I would much rather sit at my computer. But I find purpose in that little piece of earth. And I would say to that point, find your purpose every day. Sometimes it can be challenging working as a computer guy or as a technology guy or managing little tiny projects. But when I take a step back and I see the results of that, there are people who expect to get paid in the business that I'm in, and those people need that money. They're on disability. So when I get up in the morning and I look at what I do, I'm kind of like a gardener. I'm tending that field, that little digital field there where those things are growing and blossoming, and they're taking care of the people that need them. But the bottom line is, there's not anything quite like a little chaos for creation, right? Sometimes we create intentionally. We go through an educational process and we graduate. We develop in a relationship and we come together in a union. We create something with the intention of delivering it. But other times it's a little bit like, hey, surprise, here's what you get to work on for the next 4 or 5 years. And when I think about that, I remember from Joel, I never remember where these verses are, by the way, just, in just honesty here. But I remember the stories, and I have to go find them later. So if you want to know, this is from Joel. What the locust swarm has left, the great locust have eaten. What the great locust have eaten, the young locust have eaten. What the young locusts have eaten, other locusts have eaten. Do you get the picture here? There's this devastation, this decimation. These locusts come in and basically just tear everything to the ground. And doesn't it feel like that sometimes in this little classroom that we call life? That we're presented with these opportunities that come to us like, oh, by the way, your services are no longer required. Or, I still love you, but I'm not in love with you. Some tough lessons to learn. But they're part of what goes into that building of the soil for our spiritual experience, right? And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the stuff of life that becomes a part of that richness that we live and grow and have our beings in. In my life, that shows up in the way that we prepared our garden. There was a lot of tearing out. There was a lot of preparation for what we wanted there. And one of the things that we knew that we wanted to attract into our life, into that garden, were butterflies. What are the things that you want to attract into your experience? Knowing what you want to attract is very important. Setting definite goals is very important. When I was a week old, my parents took me to this little country church in Lavon, Texas, where Reverend Russell Moore, my namesake, was preaching. And the week after that, I got a letter from him. Now, I grew up in the Baptist church. I went to Baylor University, so hear what I'm about to say. My first day at Baylor University in Old Testament history class, my professor said, Genesis is poetry. And that's the first time I had ever heard anything like that in my experience. Find the poetry in your life. Find the poetry in what you read and what you see. Find the poetry in Scripture. But in that letter, he told me 3 things. Set definite goals, start with what you have, and trust in the Lord. Trust in spiritual law to see it through. And so we do that in our activities. We do that when we create and plant our gardens, whether those gardens are real gardens in the yard or in our work life or our home life or our spiritual life. We wanted to attract butterflies. That's a real thing that we wanted. Well, we did a little bit of research, and what do you plant when you want to attract butterflies? Well, I don't know what the thing is called. We call it a butterfly bush. We also heard that passion vine was good for attracting butterflies. Now, that's a real vine, people, but you can use it as a metaphor if you like. What is your passion? Let your passion grow to attract the things that you really want into your life. Now, the thing about Passion Vine is it attracts butterflies, right? Which is what we wanted. But in that process, we didn't really think through what it really meant. So with butterflies comes what we affectionately refer to as butterfly sexy time. So lots of butterflies getting together and lots of butterflies doing what butterflies do in addition to making little caterpillars. Well, guess what the caterpillars do to that beautiful passion vine? I was going to use the term decimate. That's only 10%. By the time the caterpillars get done with it, it doesn't look anything like what you expect. But then come the cocoons. Then comes the transformation from what is to what will be. And if you've never seen it, plant some passion vine in your garden and in your life and watch what happens. Hundreds of cocoons. Hundreds of these divine ideas, these concepts, these things that you want, germinating, transforming themselves into something beautiful. About the time those butterflies are ready to come out, you know what that passion vine looks like? It looks like the Garden of Eden to those things. And the cycle begins all over again. That's part of the beauty of it. That's part of the wonderful thing about the spiritual process and what we get to do here in this classroom that we call life, is the cycle. We can make it miserable or we can have fun with it. We can know what's going to happen or we can be surprised every time the caterpillars come. But we know that there's good. We know that there's beauty in the becoming. A few weeks ago, we got a call from the HR department at Hewlett-Packard saying, effectively, your services here will no longer be required. This seems to be a recurring theme in my life. Now, most of the people on my team have been doing this for 30 years. So I'm the new kid on the block. I've only been there for about 3.5 years. So I took a deep breath and said, okay, I've been here before. Then we got a little extra news. Oh, some of you are being traded to another outfit. And that was our group. We got traded. A couple of days later, another message came out for the rest of the folks. 10% of y'all are going to be gone. So in that moment, that first moment where we thought we were just done, it turns out we were the lucky ones, right? So as you're waiting for that becoming, make sure that you don't hold apprehensions about what the future looks like, right? When you come out of that cocoon, be prepared for good. Part of the process for us in the backyard was we have this stony deck around the pool, and then this yard space that extends back to the back fence. And we wanted a path back to that back gate. Well, timing is always perfect, as you know. There's always divine order in everything. And like most marriages, any of you who are in a relationship will know you've got these great years and these not so great years. Well, it was one of those not so great years, and it was one of those not so great times, and it was one of those, we can barely look at each other, much less work together times. But we made a commitment to each other to spend a weekend working together, really working with our hands together to create this path. And it wasn't going to be just a stone here or a stone there. We dug up about 40 feet of yard. I carried about 20 bags of concrete from the shelf in Home Depot to the cart, from the cart to the car, from the car to the site, and from that into the barrel and into the path. You ever have those things that you carry? You pick them up, you put them down, you pick them up, you put them down. There's something that's very transformative about the process of creation, not just in the materials that we use, but in the labor. And I still consider that process a part of gardening, even though it really only involved tearing out grass. But there was something that was amazing about that weekend. We came together to create something. And in that moment, we realized that we're capable of working together. We're capable of creating together. Creating something beautiful is what we did. Look at opportunities for growth as opportunities to see how you approach your personal growth. Whether your path is educational or relational or spiritual or agricultural, the destination really isn't the point, because the journey is always a journey within, right? It doesn't matter where you go or what you explore, really what you're discovering is yourself. And something about the path, it doesn't matter whether you're on the Autobahn. It doesn't matter if you're on some little country road in East Texas. It doesn't matter if you're creating your own path. Pick a path. Get on a path. Make a path. That path leads to a gate at the back of the yard. And from the inside, it's kind of obvious. There's a latch on it. From the outside, it's hidden. It's kind of like a secret garden if you look at it from that side. But that's a whole other story. But I see a lot of potential in transition at the gate. And you know the gate that I'm talking about. It's that doorway. It's that portal. It's that transition that you know is there. Whether you know when you'll get to it or not is another question. Martin Luther King talked about faith as being willing to take the first step, even if you don't know what the top of the staircase looks like. I think I know spiritually what's beyond the gate. I know what's beyond that gate now. That's the expansion of our garden. I tend to think and believe that spirituality imitates life and vice versa. So I know whatever's beyond the gate's going to be beautiful. There's just so many opportunities to be and become in the garden. Has anybody read the book by Andy Weir, The Martian? Seen the movie? Yeah, is it good? I'm taking a group to see it this afternoon. I picked that book up, not coincidentally, after HP told me that my services were no longer required and that I had to use all my vacation time. Headed down to the beach, picked up that book because I had heard great things about it, and it's the first time in years that I have literally devoured a book like that. I will tell you, if you haven't read the book, if you hadn't seen the movie, it's the visualization with soundtrack of what we're talking about right here. And I haven't seen the movie, it probably does a lot better job. This man on a common path, this man who goes through an educational process to become a botanist. He's a gardener. He's also an engineer who winds up on an uncommon path. He winds up on a spaceship headed for Mars. And then he winds up in transition. Oh, and this is a big one. Oh, he's here alone with nothing but what they've left for him, which is not a lot. Does it feel like that in your life sometimes, that you've done all the right things? You've taken the path, the common path. You've taken the special path to make yourself what you wanted to be. And then suddenly you're left alone with nothing but your wits, nothing but what God gave you. Start with what you have. I don't want to give too much away. He didn't have much, but he had a goal. He was going to make it. He was going to survive. He was going to get off that planet. And he trusted what he knew. He trusted what he had. He set his goal and then he trusted. Myrtle Fillmore said, "As lives the flower in the seed, so lives the Christ in me. As lives the flower in the seed, so lives the Christ as me." In case it's not obvious yet, you are the rich soil. You are the seed. You are the water of life. You are the light. You are the blossom. You are the fruit of the vine. Jesus went on to explain what the parable he said meant. I just want to share the last part of it with you. The seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. You have to prepare the soil. You have to plant the seed. Now grow, people. Just grow. God bless you.